crazy chickens, lying parents, and above all, a giant in black and white. Kung Fu Panda has been in our lives for a long time, and now with its new movie, it'll become a legend for both adults and children. So why not learn his whole story in just one video, from how it begins to how it ends. The chronological story of Kung Fu Panda begins with the evilest villain of all in Kung Fu Panda, Shen. Several years ago, when Po was just a baby, they wanted to send him to the realm of the spirits. It all began with a family of wealthy peacocks who ruled in the city of Gongmen. These crazies created fireworks, supposedly to add more color and life to their town. But what they didn't expect was that their son, Shen, was born a complete maniac and pyromaniac. Shen experimented and created several bombs with these fireworks, only to bring destruction and sadness to the world. The peacocks, instead of taking him to a psychologist, went to a witch, who told them that their son would be evil for life, and that the only person who would destroy him would be a warrior of black and white. Worried about his future, Shen tried to avoid his tragic destiny. Along with an army of wolves, they marched to the Panda village, where he would massacre all of them. Among all these panda families that suffered this tragic fate was a mother trying to save her son, whom she would hide inside a box of radishes. The mother had to distract the wolves so they wouldn't find her baby. And that's how this magical radish box caused us to meet our beloved Panda Po. The box belonged to a very kind goose named Mr. Pink. At first, the goose didn't want to adopt the child, but just by seeing that tender face, he fell for his charms, bathed him, cooked for him, and even dressed him. He was the one who gave him that legendary name that we will remember for all the years, Po. Po initially had the destiny of being the next heir to his adopted father's noodle shop. But could a noodle cook defeat Shen? But well, everything changed for the panda when one night he saw the Furious Five in battle, and especially when he saw Tigress. Hoo-hoo-hoo! His battle was so majestic that since that day, Po decided that someday he would be a kung fu warrior. He would try to tell his father his true passion, but to not hurt him, Po would hide his feelings by accepting that for better or worse, he would have to keep selling noodles. Meanwhile, high in the valley, the wise turtle Wu-wei had the revelation that the most prodigious enemy and student of Shifu would escape from prison. Shifu, terrified by this, sent the duck messenger to reinforce the entire prison to prevent this from happening. Wu-wei knew what was coming, so he decided it was time to find the dragon warrior, the one responsible for protecting the valley and maintaining peace. They prepared a whole test and celebration to determine who it'll be and who they would call the Dragon Warrior. The whole town would attend, and along with the entire town, there was also Po. That same day he had to face all his fears. First, his father, and second, his worst enemy, the stairs.
My old enemy, stairs.
His father let him go with the condition that he'd carry a cart of noodles to sell, but since it was so heavy, he couldn't even climb 6 steps with it. Po would run to the temple, but when he arrived, the door slammed in his face. But as we know, Po was not one to give up easily, so he would try in many ways to enter, but failing in all of them. Until he saw a box of fireworks. He attached all these fireworks to a chair to be shot up to the grand ceremony. Or at least that was the plan, until his father arrived to stop him. Po, with all his frustration, told them that his true dream was Kung Fu. While this happened, the panda was propelled into the sky, and like magic or some wizardry, he fell into the temple at the feet of Wu-wei, who pointed at him with a big smile that he would be the next new dragon warrior. Very confused, Po apologized, and Tigress asked the turtle master who he was pointing, to him or her. As we imagined, with all of Po's luck, he was the one Wu-wei was pointing. Everyone amazed and Wu-wei very happy with life, saying the universe has sent us the dragon warrior. Everyone shouting for joy, confetti flying, laughter releasing, but Shifu with his face like he just stepped on poop. He said he wasn't the dragon warrior, that Wu-wei would choose Tigress until that panda landed in front of her. And this is something that Shifu cannot get out of his mind for a long time. At first, no one wanted Po. They just wanted him out of the temple and out of their lives, because for them everything had been a mistake. In the training room, in his first training of Po, Shifu wanted to completely humiliate Po. He taught him everything he would have to do, following the steps of the 5 masters. But how would Po follow these steps if the others were masters and he knew nothing about Kung Fu? Po would start with a doll that children trained with which just one blow sent the panda flying. The panda fell into all the deadly traps, and embarrassed, the panda would try to sleep for the next morning to wake up before everyone else to train. Again, another humiliation occurred as he got stuck trying to do a perfect split. Shifu explains that it takes years of suffering and years of training to achieve that. Shifu asks Po to fight against him, but obviously the panda couldn't even touch him, and the master would give him some turns and tremendous kick, sending him flying out of the temple, telling him that if he was smart, he wouldn't come back. While Po suffered humiliations and despairs, the messenger in the prison arrives and asks the guards to reinforce all security, but this just laughed like all egocentrics. The guards show the messenger to Tai Lung, and even the guard mocks the kitten, telling him that he would no longer be the dragon warrior because Wu found the real one. I think with this, they awakened the fury in him. The goose saw that Tai Lung was being guarded by 1,000 guards and was trapped with an immobilization vest. He thought it was impossible for him to escape, and he felt calmer. And this would have been the case if the rhinoceros had not slapped the bird, making a feather fall to where Tai Lung was, which he would use as a key to free himself from the vest. And this is how Wu-Wei's vision was fulfilled, and Tai Lung was able to escape, defeating 1,000 guards and sending a message to Shifu. "I'm coming, Daddy." Po, not being so smart, returned to the palace where Tigress tells him that he should leave, and tells him the story of his enemy Tai Lung. She told them how Tai Lung was an old apprentice of Shifu that he found outside the palace, and over the years trained him until he saw great potential in the young leopard, training day and night until his bones broke. Shifu introduced him to Wu-Wei so that he would be the next dragon warrior, but Wu-Wei saw nothing but evil in him, so he would not allow him to see all the secrets hidden in the Dragon Warrior scroll. Full of hatred, Tai Lung devastated the valley, trying to steal the scroll and beating his master. Due to the great love Shifu had for him, he could not stop his student, so it was Wu-Wei who paralyzed him and locked him in the prison which he just escaped from. This left Po scared, since the inevitable happened and Shifu gave the news to Wu-Wei that his vision had been true and Tai Lung had escaped. Instead of helping, Wu-Wei just told him to trust and have faith that Po is the chosen one, to trust his choice, and that he would transform the fat panda into the dragon warrior. Wu-Wei vanished into a pile of pink petals towards the spirit realm. Shifu would warn everyone and tell them that no one but Po would be the only one who could defeat Tai Lung, who when he heard the news fled, until Shifu caught him. The panda tells him how he would become the dragon warrior, something that made Shifu stay silent, not knowing what to answer. This silence made Po hopeless, and he just returned to the temple with his head down. That same night, among the shadows of the Furious Five, they decided to stop Tai Lung themselves, despite their teacher's warnings. The next day, Shifu noticed that the temple was totally empty and heard some knocks in the kitchen, where he found the panda watching how to throw perfect punches to get food. Shifu then tells them that it didn't matter if he broke everything, but that for no reason he would grab the cookies that Monkey Heights hide in the pantry. So the master pretends to leave and return for Po to find him doing a perfect split. Shifu, excited, would understand how to train him, and that perhaps at the end of everything, he could transform him into the Dragon Warrior. I know it's a little absurd that food helps Po learn combat techniques, but as the wise man Jackie Chan told us, Kung Fu lives in everything we do.
Kung Fu lives in everything we do, Xiao Zhui.
Much hard training later, Po could finally be ready to face Shifu for a dumpling. Po could finally beat Shifu. After completing his training and becoming a master, they both see Crane arrive, with the Four Furious completely paralyzed, since their fight against Tai Lung had ended very badly. Shifu would say that it is the time in which Po has to receive the Dragon Scroll, and opens it so that he sees what the secret ingredient is, which is nothing.
Nothing.
It would only reflect as if it were a mirror. Everyone ends up disappointed, and they see that there are no secrets to defeat Tai Lung, so it is better to evacuate the valley. But Shifu would stay to give them time and sacrifice himself for the whole town. Here is where we know that Tai Lung did everything just so that his master would be proud of him, and that the master himself was the one who fueled his dreams of becoming the Dragon Warrior. While they beat up Shifu, Po returns after a long time with his father to tell him how bad he felt for not having been enough to stop all of this. His father, to make him feel better, would tell him the secret of what is the special ingredient of his special soup, which is again
Nothing.
since what made it special and so rich was believing that it was special. So with those words, Po would understand everything, and full of determination, he would return to the temple, just before Tai Lung gave Shifu the final blow. And now the most epic battle in my opinion of all Kung Fu Panda would begin. Po, trusting himself a lot, tried to prevent Tai Lung from getting the scroll. But his efforts were not enough, since Tai Lung hit him with all his strength to scratch the scroll from him. And that's when Tai Lung discovered that there was nothing either. And Po, with a little strength, would tell him that there was no secret at all. The scroll only showed oneself, and that is what made it special. And the real thing that made it special was that he had to believe that he was special. Tai Lung, angry at this situation, tries to kill Po, who stops him with the Wixu finger hold, to which Tai Lung would say that it is not possible that the master taught him that. Po says that it is true, that he deduced it himself, exploding Tai Lung and sending him into the realm of the spirits. Panda saves the valley and is recognized by all as the Dragon Warrior. He even earns the respect of all his idols. Over time, Po would realize that it was impossible to have a goose as a biological father, and for the second movie, he would decide to look for his true origin. What triggered the idea of Po seeking his origin was when he and the Furious Five attempted to stop a robbery that the city would suffer at the hands of a group of wolves. The wolves would take all the metal materials they could find, and so the warriors easily defeated the thieves, except for Po. Before stopping the general, a symbol on his armor triggers a memory of his past. Paralyzed, the panda receives a holy blow in the face, and the wolves manage to escape. Po would run into his father's restaurant to ask about his mother, and there Mr. Pink would tell him the truth and the whole story of how he came to his door to be adopted. He couldn't give him more information about his parents because he never knew them, leaving the Dragon Warrior disappointed. Po wanted to learn the technique of inner peace that Shifu performed in the cave. This technique involves carrying a drop of water with your hands to a leaf without the drop exploding. Po tried several times and failed each time, explaining the emotional imbalance he had as a panda. Meanwhile, we see Shen, the evil child who is now an adult ready to take over China, returning to the Gonggamin Temple, which was his home. Shen is surprised to find 3 Kung Fu masters guarding the building, and there he reveals that he wants to eliminate all Kung Fu. To do this, he built an enormous cannon, which he would first test on Master Rhino. The master did not survive this attack, and the news spread throughout the state, reaching Shifu. Shifu immediately orders the whole group to go and stop him, and so they embark on their journey to stop this peacock. When they arrive in the city, they see that it is infested with wolves under Shen's command. They try to go unnoticed, but Po, being clumsy, attracts attention, leading to a fatal chase that ends up with the group in a dungeon. There, they discover that among the prisoners are Master Oaks and Master Crocodile, who were captured instead of being killed like their friend Rhino. The warriors asked for help from the 2 masters, who refuse out of fear of Shen's new weapon. Po tries to convince them, but they only leave him disappointed and demoralized. Before continuing to insist that they join, the wolf leader and his henchmen enter the dungeon to stop them. They are quickly defeated, but the leader escapes again. Po pursues them throughout the city until they reach the entrance of the building where the cannon is located and a bunch of Shen's soldiers. With few options, Po surrenders, and the group is taken to the Lord, who is preparing to receive the panda by practicing various forms of presentation. Po had to be carried by an officer up all the stairs to reach Shen, causing 2 things. First, Shen feels completely baffled by the panda's attitude, and second, Po meets the witch who is imprisoned with the bird and about whom Po has no idea who she is. Finally, facing each other, Shen mocks Po, telling him that he had a whole life to plan his revenge and hasn't succeeded yet. Po responds that it hasn't been exactly a lifetime, just a few days since he killed Master Rhino. It is then that the witch and the bird realize that Po actually has no idea who Shen is, and everything he did to him since he was a baby. After a fight where they destroy the weapon, Shen opens all his feathers, making Po remember what happened that night, and more importantly, who his real enemy is. Po is confused, and Lord Shen manages to escape, but at least the group is happy that they destroyed the weapon. Although it turns out they didn't, because the bird had built more weapons and aimed all his cannons at the building where the team was trapped. With no way to escape, the warriors climb to the roof to be shot off, and then have to figure out another way to stop the cannons. Once reunited in prison with Master Oaks and Crocodile, Tigress decides to leave Po out of the plan to stop Shen, because she's afraid Po might lose his life. However, Po doesn't listen and decides to infiltrate the armory where the cannons are. Shen surprises Po, telling him that his parents never loved him, and then shoots him, sending him flying. Injured and unconscious, Po floats down a river, where he's found by the old witch who heals him and tells him the truth about his past. She also tells him that he's the chosen one to defeat Shen. With all these memories and feelings, Po manages to perform the technique of inner peace, showing that he finally achieved his mental peace by knowing his story and who he truly is. Now it's time for the fight, but the problem is that the Furious Five are trapped and chained on ships, all full of cannons, sailing towards the open sea to conquer China. However, in the distance, Po appears with a hat and a cool look. Po shouts some truths at Shen, but since he's too far away, they can't hear him, so they decide to start shooting. Po dodges all their attacks and ends up causing the cannons to fire at each other. Then Po frees the five, and an amazing battle begins. Later, Master Oaks and Master Crocodile come to the rescue, deciding to join the battle thanks to Shifu. In the midst of all this and Shen's desperation, he orders the wolf boss to shoot, but he refuses because it would also kill his own wolves. Furious, Lord Shen then kills the wolf, and without caring, he fires the cannon, sending all the warriors into the sea. Po sees how he's about to be defeated and sees all his friends unconscious, so he decides to face the ships himself. He stands on a rock, an easy target for Shen, who orders to shoot him with a malicious smile. However, Shen didn't expect the surprise that Po had. He had mastered inner peace, and with that same technique would redirect all his bullets towards the ship. Po blows up Shen, who is left unconscious and wakes up seeing all his ships destroyed. Shen asks how Po could find inner peace if he took everything from him, to which Po responds that he didn't take anything, as he still has a family and friends. Filled with rage, Shen tries to kill Po, but ends up being crushed by one of his own cannons, exploding the entire ship with them. In the end, the warriors would be congratulated by the entire city, and in the distance, an old panda would rise to say, "My son is alive." Before continuing, we have to travel to the spirit realm, where we will see our favorite turtle, Uwe, again, who would be resting until a sword would be directed towards him, the Sword of Kai, an ancient warrior whom Uwe once called a friend. They engage in a battle in which the turtle would lose, and Kai would show him how he could absorb different masters, demonstrating an incredible collection of them as little figurines. Kai absorbs Uwe, managing to escape to the mortal world, now posing a great threat as he intends to do the same to the dragon warrior. Meanwhile, Shifu announces his retirement as a trainer and leaves Po in charge, who turns out to be a bad master, almost hurting the Furious Five. Upon this, Po seeks out Shifu for advice, and he tells him to take the prophecy made by Uwe seriously, and to trust more in himself and his powers. He shows Po a technique that makes a flower grow, which of course, Po wants to learn. Days pass, and while Po tries to avoid training, he is informed that someone is breaking his record of breaking the most bean buns, which happens to be his biological father, who tells him he is looking for his son. After a misunderstanding, they end up embracing each other, much to the jealousy of Mr. Ping, who criticizes Poe's biological father. After that, father and son go to the place to try out a few things and destroy a few more. But their family time would be short-lived, as Master Shifu informs them that the village is being attacked by beings with a green appearance. Poe and the group have to go to save the city, only to realize that they are actually fighting against ancient masters who died 100 years ago. Upon stopping all the crystal fighters, Kai speaks through them and tells Poe that he's coming for him, before turning them into stones and disappearing. When they tell Shifu about the situation, the name Kai rings a bell, and he searches the ancient scrolls to find out that Uwe once fought alongside Kai in his youth. One day, Uwe was gravely wounded, and Kai carried him in the search of the Panda Valley, where pandas could heal him using chi. However, Kai wanted to use the chi for other purposes instead of giving it, which led to him absorbing all the pandas and collecting their chi. Uwe had to stop him and sent him to the spirit realm, until the day he would be released to be stopped by a chi warrior. This is how Poe tells Shifu to stop Kai, but Shifu tells him that he doesn't even know how to master chi, as it takes decades to learn. Fortunately for everyone, and as the movie cannot last for a decade, Poe's biological father promises to teach him this technique, since he's a panda and supposedly knows how to use chi. Without much thought, Shifu tells him to travel with his father, while sending Crane and Mantis to find Kai's hideout. Thus, Poe embarks on a journey until he reaches the hidden Panda Valley, where he's warmly welcomed by all the inhabitants, feeling like he's finally where he belongs. During training to learn the new technique, Poe would eagerly get up for his training, but his father would rather demonstrate how to sleep in late, eat and roll around. We all want that kind of training, but the problem is that after wasting so much time, Kai arrives at the Jade Palace and attacks it with Crane and Mantis under his control, destroying everything, including a statue in honor of Uwe. Kai takes control of everyone except Tigress, who escapes to warn Poe that Kai is coming. Something I didn't mention earlier is that Poe's non-biological father, the goose, is also in the Panda village, which seems not so relevant, but you'll see why it actually is. Without wasting time, Poe asks his father to teach him how to use chi, but he tells him the truth, that he actually doesn't know how to use it, that it was all a lie to try to keep him safe in the valley. This makes Poe furious, and he refuses to talk to him anymore. After some talks with Goose Ping, Poe's father apologizes to his son, and they decide to plan together a way to stop Kai's slaves so that Poe can get close and perform a Wuxi finger hold on him, sending him back to the spirit realm. For this, Poe asks all the villagers to show him what they do best, so that he can train them and merge their abilities with Kung Fu. Kai arrives with his army, and the pandas battle him, demonstrating that Poe's training has worked, even getting Poe close enough to Kai to perform the hold, which actually doesn't work, because Kai is already dead, and that technique only works on the living. So Poe decides to sacrifice himself and perform the hold on himself to send both him and Kai to the spirit realm to continue their battle there. Poe is losing against the villain, who starts to absorb his chi. In the mortal world, the pandas and Tigress, with Poe's teachings, manage to figure out who they are, mastering chi to give Poe the strength and power to become the Dragon Warrior, who defeats Kai, giving him so much chi that his body cannot bear it, making him disappear from both worlds, freeing all his prisoners both physically and spiritually. With the battle coming to an end, everyone worries that Poe doesn't return, but he appears after having a conversation with Uwe, who gives him his staff. This is how Poe stays with the entire village and his friends to finally rest in the valley with his family, at least until the next villain threatens the village in Kung Fu Panda 4.